For our empathetic president to just walk away from all of this, knowing that he facilitated all of this without any plan for transition, is really despicable. It's quite despicable. And by the way, subjecting 38 million people to the predations of some of the worst people on planet Earth. Disaster continues to roll out in Afghanistan. The Taliban are doing what they do best, namely torturing and murdering people. So video has now emerged of the Taliban torturing translators, for example, and people who had translated on behalf of the American military who was there. And then yesterday, apparently, there are people who were carrying Afghanistan's old flag, the non-Taliban flag that was flying over Kabul until just a couple of days ago. And the Taliban did what they do best. They just opened fire into the crowd. According to Al Arabiya, members of the extremist group opened fire on the crowd. At least 2 people dead, at least 10 people injured. Here is some of the video. You can see people begging to leave. I mean, this is, it's for our empathetic president to just walk away from all of this, knowing that he facilitated all of this without any plan for transition, is really despicable. It's quite despicable. But as we will see, President Biden, when it comes to this sort of stuff, is pretty despicable in general. Here's some video of Afghan girls begging in the American military to take them with them because they know what's going to happen, which is effectually sex slavery for everybody under a particular age. I remember when people say, well, they're just going back to the lifestyle that they chose. They're just going back to what they knew before. Many of these girls have never known this lifestyle. The United States invaded Afghanistan in 2001. It is now 2021. Girls who are 18, 19, 20 years old have never lived under the Taliban. They do not remember what it is like to live under the Taliban. If you're under 25 years old in Afghanistan, this means you have never really experienced Taliban rule in a way that you can remember. Because again, the United States took over the country in 2001 and then handed it over to our Afghan allies. So the bizarre idea that this was approved by the Afghan population, generally speaking, particularly in the major cities that were controlled by the United States, like Kabul, is quite crazy. It's quite crazy. And you can see the fallout from this. Here, for example, is the first Afghan Air Force pilot who was female. Her name is Niloufar Rahmani, pleading for President Biden to hear her to save the families of people who worked with the United States who are going to get stuck there. All these women, by the way, are going to get raped. All these women are going to get sold into sex slavery. If you're a single woman, you will, by 13, 14 years old, have been married off to somebody, if not raped, or you will be married and then raped. That is the way things worked under the Taliban from 1996 to 2001 when they ran the place, and that has come back in spades. Here is this Afghan female pilot talking about it.
As an Afghan woman, I would like for President Biden to hear me, the government, that please save the families, that they need you, the women, the little girls, that they always looking up into the United States, the great army that United States brought to Afghanistan. And also, please save my family.
Well, the good news is that the media are apparently dedicated to the proposition, at least to a certain extent, that the Taliban might be okay. You're starting to see this theme running through the media. Not everybody in the media. I think there are some people in the media who are on the left and are surprisingly actually doing some honest media coverage. I think that you've seen this from, for example, Richard Engel over at NBC News. I think you've seen this from Jake Tapper over at CNN. There are some members of the media who are still doing some honest media coverage of this. But I think the tendency over the coming days is going to be to suggest that the Taliban have in some way moderated, in the same way that the media went along with the narrative that the Iranian regime had moderated, and therefore it was time for the United States to make concessions to the malacracy. I think you're going to get that from the Taliban as well with regard to the media. The Taliban know how to play this. So the Taliban spokesperson yesterday, for example, said, women do have rights. We're going to acknowledge women's rights now. And then they add the little phrase that makes all of that moot. That comply with Sharia. If you say that women have rights that comply with Sharia, that means women don't have rights. Okay, Sharia law in the Taliban's interpretation of Islamic fundamentalist law means women do not have rights. But here they are saying what they think the West wants to hear.
The question is, what kind of guarantees can it provide for ensuring women's rights? As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to, we are going to allow women to work and study. We have got frameworks, of course. The women are going to be very active in the society, but within the frameworks of Islam.
Within the frameworks of Islam, under Sharia law. By the way, this is why women, young girls, are already being sent home from school. Like already. That is the wonderful Zabihullah Mujahid. I'm sure we'll hear more from the spokesperson for the 8th century barbarian Taliban. Malala Yousafzai, who you'll recall, was hailed the world over for her willingness to fight for women's education in Afghanistan. She now writes in the New York Times, in the last 2 decades, millions of Afghan women and girls received an education. Now the future they promised is dangerously close to slipping away. The Taliban, who until losing power 20 years ago barred nearly all girls and women from attending school and doled out harsh punishment to those who defied them, are back in control. Like many women, I fear for my Afghan sisters. She says Afghan girls and young women are once again where I have been, in despair over the thought they might never be allowed to see a classroom or hold a book again. Some members of the Taliban say they will not deny women and girls education or the right to work, but given the Taliban's history, Afghans' women's fears are real. Already, we are hearing reports of female students being turned away from their universities, female workers from their offices. None of this is new for the people of Afghanistan. She says that she's going to try and funnel money in there, but good luck to her. Good luck to her. Because the Taliban is not going to allow any of this. And everybody knows that this is the case at this point. And the desperation of people attempting to leave is just overwhelming. I mean, there was a picture that was making the rounds yesterday that is shocking. Right? This is a picture of a man's legs from underneath the wheel well of a plane. This would be an American jet. Okay, they're above the cloud line. So they are thousands of feet high. This person grabbed onto the wheel well of a plane in an attempt to escape. And we already know, according to Politico, that one man, his body was found mangled in the wheel well of an American C-17. Okay, you know what kind of desperation it takes in order to do that? Some pretty significant desperation. By the way, the Taliban has been shooting at Afghans near the airport, so anybody who is attempting to escape, the Taliban are just shooting. Joe Biden decided it would be a good idea to hand the country back over to these people. This would be a great idea. All it took was maintaining a bare bones troop presence, 2,500 troops, in a support capacity, fixing airplanes. And he decided not worth it. Let's leave these barbarians in charge of a country of 38 million people. Probably that'll provide no threat to the United States in terms of an uptick in terror threat. And by the way, subjecting 38 million people to the predations of some of the worst people on planet Earth. There was a time, by the way, when Joe Biden, who is now ardently against nation building, he said there was no alternative to nation building. This was 2003.
In some parts of the administration, nation building is still a dirty phrase, but the alternative to nation building is chaos. A chaos that churns out bloodthirsty warlords, drug traffickers, and terrorists. And we've seen it happen in Afghanistan before, and I am quite fearful it may happen again. He's changed his tune somewhat. By 2010, by the way, this is what's so amazing. When you look to your politicians for empathy, you are looking in the wrong place. You're looking in the wrong place. It is stupid to look to your politicians for empathy. First of all, I don't think the politicians should operate on the basis of empathy. I think they should operate on the basis of rational calculation. I don't think Joe Biden does either. I don't think he operates on the basis of empathy or on the basis of rational calculation. But just to remind you, for all those people who believe that Joe Biden is a kindly old grandfather figure, here's what Joe Biden had to say in 2010 about pulling out of Afghanistan. So Richard Holbrooke had a diary. Richard Holbrooke was the special envoy from the Obama administration to Afghanistan and Pakistan. And Holbrooke asked Biden about America's obligation to maintain presence in Afghanistan to protect vulnerable civilians. And here was what Biden responded. F that. We don't have to worry about that. We did it in Vietnam. Nixon and Kissinger got away with it. F that. Well, man is true to his word. F that and F those people. By the way, again, our weaponry is now in the hands of these barbarians. According to Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor, who did just a cataclysmically bad performance yesterday in front of the press. I mean, this is just a catastrophe in terms of public relations. The national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, Rhodes Scholar, genius all the way around, Obama holdover. He says, oh yeah, by the way, billions of dollars of our weaponry is now in the hands of the Taliban.
What happens to the billions of dollars worth of weaponry that the U.S. escape Afghanistan. Does the U.S. have a plan for that, or does it remain in the Taliban hands?
We don't have a complete picture, obviously, of where every article of defense materials has gone, but certainly a fair amount of it has fallen into the hands of the Taliban. And obviously, we don't have a sense that they are going to readily hand it over to us at the airport.
We don't have a sense they're going to... Of course they're not going to hand it over. You give them billions of dollars in sophisticated weaponry. Of course. No, they're going to come... They're going to show up with their MRAPs and be like, you know what, guys? We know that you're leaving, and just as a parting gift, we decided to give you back this billions of dollars in military hardware, including sophisticated drone technology. By the way, we are busily trying to scrub any biometric materials that we have in Afghanistan because the Taliban are going through all of that stuff, and they are finding everybody who worked with us, and then they're murdering those people. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.